Welcome everyone to today's demo day with Centrical, from human to hybrid, bridging today and tomorrow. My name's Amanda Caçapava and I lead global customer enablement here at Centrical. And I have Chappell with me leading today's discussion. We appreciate you taking the time from your day to be here with us. So to kick us off, please drop where you're calling in right in the chat. We'd love to see who's in the room. Welcome, Sarah. Hello, Connor. Ooh, Lee from Maryland. Lots of you here from the US with us. Welcome, welcome. Some UK folks as well. Welcome. A little bit of global representation. Awesome. Well, let's get right into it. As you know, the customer service space is changing super fast. We're moving to a hybrid workforce of humans and AI, and it's really putting new pressure on organizations, especially frontline agents and their managers. Now, if your team is being asked to handle more, learn faster, and adapt to a workforce that now includes AI agents, you've come to the right place. Today, you'll get a live look at how Centrical Performance Intelligence OS gives your agents and managers the toolkit to close this gap. So in the next 30-ish minutes, you'll see how to help agents practice real-world interactions with AI-driven simulations, expand managers' fans and impact with AI-assisted coaching, and turn external signals into immediate frontline action. Excited to get started? We will be answering questions in real time, so please drop your questions in the chat and don't hesitate. If we don't answer live, we'll be sure to get right back to you either way. All right, Ian, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Amanda, for the lovely introduction. Okay, so I'm going to just go through a couple of slides, today we are talking about human to hybrid and really focusing on the day in the life of the manager. So I'm going to just share a couple of slides just to frame the Centrical point of view, because we were discussing before the call, Amanda, just how wide and deep Centrical is, right? It's a large product. There's a lot of functionality in there, but we want to be really targeted today with the time we have. So as Amanda mentioned, right, Centrical's intelligence operating system, or its performance intelligence operating system, it really focuses on your frontline teams, mainly around the manager and the frontline employee. But our mission statement is really to guide everyone to the best version of themselves. So that will be your frontline colleagues, your managers, even as we bring AI agents into the platform and into the workplace, given those insights as well. But I do just want to start with some figures that I think are probably relatable to most people on this call, certainly to most people that I speak to in the industry. And, we, like, as Amanda mentioned, we've got a real kind of global footprint. We hear the same thing, that managers are out of time developing their people. What has now happened is team leaders, frontline managers, are almost becoming kind of a dumping ground for everything other than what they're fundamentally there to do. And they're there to just be efficient and impactful coaches and collaborators and really help get the best out of their people. And I won't go into all of the figures, but as you can see here, there's a lot of trends around, it's too long to train up a new skill. They don't have time to spend with their people. And it's because they're generally either pulling a number of reports to make sense of the data, or, as I mentioned, they've got those roles and responsibilities on their kind of work stack that has really nothing to do with improving the performance or the output of their people. So the tools are there, the insight's definitely there, but it's how do we then free up that time so that managers can take action? And what you're going to hear a lot about when we go through the demo today is how we take disjointed insights, but more importantly, make those insights actionable, linked back to a business objective. And that business objective could be to make more money, do more with less, improve the customer experience. How do we tie all of that back to the individual having an impact on that? So that's what we're going to talk about. As I've already mentioned, we don't have a data gap, we have an action gap. And what we've seen over years and years of companies buying tech is that there are a lot of point solutions. The problem with point solutions is that you've got all of these siloed great pieces of data and great pieces of insight, but it's how do we bring all of that together and then overlay it with these, with these outputs for managers and for agents to really understand where they play a role. So think of this as kind of from strategy to execution. How do we take all of this data, kind of flip it on its head, and that kind of bottom up execution with whatever it is we're trying to improve, especially in this AI era. And this is where Centrical comes in. Okay, so Centrical can really help orchestrate and make sense of all of these data points, make it connectable, or sort of connected, make it actionable, tie it back to those outcomes. Okay, it's not just about improving a KPI. It's about really improving everything to do with that objective, whether it is a behavior, whether it's acting upon these external signals. So think about things like a compliance breach or a quality red flag that you really need to jump on when you're a manager. Bring all of that into one place and allow the manager to take that action. But Central does have a lot of functionality, which I've already touched upon. So performance is kind of crucial to what we do, but we also know that tying knowledge gaps back to performance can help improve that. That's where we bring in things like the micro learning and the role play simulations, having a different view around coaching. And we're going to talk a lot about bringing the insight and allowing the manager to really find their own way using AI as the enabler within the platform. Gamification and recognition is a big part of what we do, but gamification standalone, if it's not tied to a specific business objective or something that the company is looking to drive, it can generally fall flat. So, we are we're really big advocates of rewarding the right behavior. And that could be a small improvement, but making sure that people get that recognition in what is a really tough job. And then what the action gap, if we close the action, okay, if we can get the action gap closed and really allow managers to do more with the time they have in their day, these are some of the great improvements that we're already seeing. Whether that is, more time in the day for the manager, that could be time to do other things. That could be even companies thinking, could we maybe increase the span of control and have a manager manage two or three more agents? Or is it acting upon more coaching? Coaching shouldn't be a once a month, once a week standalone activity as a box ticking exercise. Coaching to do that at scale each day is really tough if you don't have something like Centrical. And this is what we're going to be showing. Have it being really structured, have it being data led. Also get a lot of ad hoc coaching as well as the scheduled coaching in there as well. And then the live visibility and feedback. Okay, so leaders are coaching more. They're not spending. I had a stat from one of my customers here in the UK where for a 1 hour coaching session, it was taking a manager 4.5 hours to pull together the pack to then have that conversation. It's just not a real effective use of the time. So as I've already touched upon, we're really going to be focusing on the team leader piece today, or your frontline managers. And what we're going to see is things like our AI role play. What does that look like to the manager? We won't walk through it end to end, but I will show you that kind of scalable output to the manager where he or she can take action. The coaching prep and auto documentation. This is a new piece of functionality. So how do we take, coaching notes that have been either typed up or captured, and then allow AI to help populate and set those actions within a coaching document. So, building out that coaching workflow so things are captured and are auditable. And then also the AI assistant for team leaders. So how do we, allow the AI assistant to really help managers get to where they need to be sooner? Okay, so without going any further, any more slides, I'm going to jump into our demo now. So just give me 1 second. Okay, so this is Centrical for team leaders. Okay, so this is the manager view. And what I want to do first of all is just explain what it is you're seeing here. So this is kind of the landing page. This is looking at a sales use case, and you can see there in the middle I have things like my average transaction value per team, and I can go into that and see what that's like for the individual. I've then got things like my accessory and service protection attach rate sales, but also I can see, what is driving those numbers up and down. Is there a specific behavior or product that we need to improve on to help drive the overall attach rate score? Okay, and then I can drill into that. I can see the individual performance and so on and so forth. But where I really want to focus a little part of the next kind of 10 minutes is talking about how we can break Centrical down into different activity types. Okay, now think about a manager's day. they're trying to spin 20 different plates. As I've already alluded to, they spend a lot of their time kind of just having things put upon them that maybe there's nowhere else for that work to go. It's not really an effective use of time when we think about, is this having an impact on the output of my people and my team? So what we have in Centrical, and I want to just talk about insights, okay? So think about the insights as kind of ad hoc coaching activities that need to happen kind of in the flow of work or as and when the data updates. So as an example, we might be bringing in insights overnight for different, different metrics, or ad hoc, we could also be bringing in maybe some of those signals that I mentioned earlier about, whether it is a vulnerable customer or a security breach or a quality breach and so on. We can bring all of that into one place and then put it in front of the manager and allow them to take action with that. So what you'll see here is these are my top 5 insights. These are my biggest drop-offs or my biggest improvements. Again, Zach's improved by 4%. Let's go in there and, and do something about that. Let's thank him. Let's give him a badge, kudos, and so on. But I've got some of these red flags that probably I should start at first of all. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to just show you how we can use AI to help the manager frame whatever that coaching action is going to be. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just first of all take a look at this. So this is Craig. He's had an issue with a vulnerable customer where he's selling a product. They're not sure that they can afford it. They seem to get a little bit muddled when he was describing what the process and what the product was. He didn't take anything into account. He wasn't empathetic towards that. He didn't check their understanding, didn't check any of the vulnerability handling guidelines. And then what he's done is he's ended up almost selling through identified vulnerability. And this is a serious conduct and regulatory failure. Okay. So classic kind of regulatory failure. This could be something if you work in a financial services organization, that could be kind of, finance related or whatever that might look like. But I need to do something with this. So as a manager, as these update and as these, are populated in my Centrical view, I can send a coaching action. Now, what you'll see here, this is the AI at work, okay? So what it's going to do is it's going to look back and it's going to say, okay, this is the coaching action that I could send if I want to. Okay, so the thing with Centrical is that it's not about just clicking a button and that would send it directly to Craig. This is going to draft a message that I can send to Craig with actions built into that. It's got all of the kind of why. It's got all of the anecdotal information as to why we're having this conversation. But obviously, as importantly as well, this is the third time in 90 days that vulnerable customer has been pushed through the distress. Okay, and then this is something that Craig really needs to work on. So once I'm happy with this, and it might be that I want to maybe make some tweaks, remove that, maybe change the date on this because this is something that I want Craig to kind of work on by Wednesday because it's so important. Once I'm happy with that, I can send that to him. Now, this is never going to replace a face-to-face discussion, okay? The beauty about the insights is that as they drop in each day, once a week, twice a week, however we configure this, I can have these coaching actions sent more regularly than just, like I mentioned earlier, coaching becoming this kind of tick box exercise that I've coached all 9 people this month and everyone knows what they're doing. I can have these discussions ad hoc. I can have these interactions more regularly than just that scheduled activity that will be in for the kind of a monthly or a weekly cadence. We also have the same, we can do that around the data as well. So it's not just about the kind of the vulnerable customers and the flags and so on. We can also do similar coaching actions around maybe a performance drop off where it can take into account that, Ruby service protection attach rates dropped. Maybe it's because she's not selling enough warranties or position enough warranties as part of that overall sale. Okay. And then what we also have down here is my to-do list, which we'll come on to in a moment.
Now, Ian, before you
Yeah.
jump into the My To-Do list, we have a great question in the chat that I wanted to flag.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I do think it's something that lots of people are also wondering. So, with us giving managers this level of insight how do we do that without making it feel like, there's a big brother to the agent, and what does the agent actually get out of it on their side?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, Amanda. It's one that you always have to be really sort of cognizant of, right? Is that there's so much data in for example, in a contact center or a retail environment, everyone is kind of monitored to within an inch of their life, right? There's data is coming from everywhere. What we always say with Centrical is, to get it right from day one, you have to take the people that this is going to impact on that journey. Okay, now Centrical is great because we can use things like rewards and gamification for kind of that job well done or having people improving behaviors, improving performance. But it's really around bringing them with the deployment as we go through. So that is, sitting and having kind of focus groups with managers, with team leaders, with agents. What makes them tick? What have we tried before? How do they want to be rewarded? Because what might work for a team in the US, for example, might be completely different to what works for a team in the UK, or even just teams within the same department. So what we always say is have um, a really solid design phase and a really solid discovery phase. Bring the managers and the agents and the people that this is going to impact on that journey. And then, like I said, we can use things like the rewards and the different elements of recognition in Centrical to help adopt and drive those behaviors. But it's a great question, right? We don't just want this to be another report that gets sent out or, what we find a lot, right, is that the way that performance management as a process works today, or coaching as a process works today, is a lot of the time agents don't know how they're performing because it's on a report that gets sent out on a Monday for the previous week. But then also sometimes they almost feel as though they are walking into a room to have a session that's been scheduled in once a month, and
Yeah.
they don't really know what it is they're going to be discussing. So by
Mhm.
having these more regular prompts, these more regular actions being sent, when you sit down for that 1 hour and you're going to discuss, you know exactly what it is you're walking into, you know exactly where the focus is going to be. So it makes for a more value-driven conversation in those sessions as well.
And it gives them everything they need right in that moment, right? You have all of that context going into those conversations. So
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Thank you for that, Ian.
No problem. Thanks for the question. Yeah, any more questions, just feel free to pop them in the chat. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at Centrical's Team Performance Central. So this is Team Performance Central. Okay, this is another way, and again, there isn't a kind of a set way that we would recommend managers to work. We are just here to really give them the insight and allow people to take action themselves. But we really want to try and improve the amount of time they spend with their people. So this
Mhm.
here is Team Performance Central. And what we have here is the ability to show the manager this grid where, again, they can take action. So, we can see here, and I have mine there's different ways to configure this. You could have it by different times. You could have it focused on different KPIs. I always like to have mine as missing target because if I'm already getting my insights, I know where I need to be focusing my attention today. When I go and do a little bit more of a deeper dive on the performance, this is where I can say, okay, well, maybe Craig, Ian, Ruby are the people that I'm going to focus on first of all today. And you can see here that Craig seems to be off track on the majority of his KPIs. We're already seeing those red flags coming through for, vulnerable customers, for example. So maybe I want to spend an hour or two today just working through some of this with Craig, setting actions, assigning learning, reviewing previous coaching sessions, and so on. So what I can do is a number of different things. And again, we won't go into this in great detail, but I just want to get across kind of the kind of toolkit that we have available for team leaders. So think about how this works today in your organization with your team leaders and try and put kind of Centrical in that workflow. And hopefully you'll see some benefit in what it is we're looking to do from this view as well. So we're going to speak a little bit around an AI assistant, but before we get to that point, just the kind of level of insight that we can give managers from a click of a button will
Mhm.
allow you to see, okay, show me how Craig's been performing. Okay, so this is Craig. This is the team average. This is where he is against target. I could even go back through there as well and look to see if there's been any previous coaching actions, any learnings that Craig's done in the platform. And it will give me the level of insight so that I know which kind of button that I want to press to get that positive reaction from Craig. So there's already some coaching actions in flight, but I know that Craig's really competitive. So maybe I want to go in there and also create a personal challenge. He's quite a way off target at 264 versus his target of $500 per transaction. So maybe I might set Craig a challenge where I kind of encourage him to improve that by $20 over the next 3 or 4 days or the next week. But also, I might also set him a focus around his quality. So he might have a quality KPI as well as a sales KPI. And I might get him to say, okay, focus on the two, get your quality right, but also look at improving that by taking actions, by, taking the coaching actions. And then I might also follow that up by assigning some learning. So when you see the word mission in Centrical, this is our kind of terminology for a piece of content, whether that is an assigned AI role play, which we're going to have a look at during the demo, or a piece of micro learning content, just some, brief notes and knowledge refreshers that can bring to the kind of front of his mind what it is he needs to focus on. And then as we see those improvements, I can then bring in some of that reward mechanism as well. Because what I really love about this, by giving managers these options, you're taking away the kind of cookie cutter one size fits all approach to coaching and getting that response from your people. It's all about having that kind of set of levers, because what works for Craig might be completely different to what works for Ian. So why don't we give the manager that kind of autonomy, knowing their people, to really get the best from their people with the actions that they can take. Now, where we take it one step further, okay, this is where we bring in our AI assistant. So, think about in my team there's currently 9 team members, but if I scale this up to 15 or 18, or, we've even heard numbers from some of our customers that they're looking to go to 25 agents per team leader,
Mhm.
because they have the ability to use AI to help do more of, as I mentioned before, what they're kind of paid to do. So I'm going to first of all just walk you through our team performance AI summary. So what this is going to do, first of all, is it's going to summarize very high level what was good and what was bad at the team level. But then what it will also do is it will start to tell me kind of who are my individuals that either I should be thanking, I should be, using as maybe mentors or buddies to the rest of the team, and who are the people that are struggling and might need a little bit more help with certain behaviors or KPIs, or maybe they aren't at the point where we want them to be. So you can see there that Zach and Gary are top performers. They always exceed their targets. Craig and Tessa are struggling, and we can see that that is kind of reflected here in our grid. So what it's going to do, it's going to try and get me to the point where I can really start having a bit more of a value-led discussion around how we improve. So it will give me a little chart, and I can see here that, we've got Zach, and as it said, Zach and Gary are doing great, but you can see that Craig and Tessa are always kind of behind or one of the lower performers within there. Then what it will do is it will start giving me prompts. So just like any AI tool that you use, whether it's kind of Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot, it will create these prompts. So it's going to actually allow me to get to the point that I want to speak to Craig or Tessa about. So let's have a look at, first of all, we've already coached Craig on something. So let's now have a look at Tessa. So I want to have a look at Tessa's accessory attach rate. Okay, so it's significantly underperforming on that, only achieving 56% last month against a 75% target. So she's obviously not kind of asking the questions or trying to, promote the accessory on the call. What you'll also see here is that it's showing me where she's doing well across or doing well or not so well across those related KPIs. So we can see here the related KPIs, which is driving this overall score. It's given me some really specific insight into where maybe she's falling down and what we could do about that. So again, this is not sending anything directly to Tessa. This is going to first of all just create me a draft version of a message that I can send or a coaching action that I can set. And when I'm happy with that, I can click on preview and send. And again, I can go in there, maybe change the date, give her a little bit longer to get to where it is we want to get to. And then I can even go in there and add in some more context, take some bits out, be really specific. But what I know is I've got the insight, I've got the background, and I've got the context. Now I'm happy with that. I can send that through to her. Okay, so it goes from me having this one session per month with each of my individuals to being able to have these on kind of a daily or a more of a regular cadence. And again, it's all captured. This can then be kind of the conversation driver when we sit down and have our face to face. And then what you'll see is that it also gives you the ability to ask me anything. Okay, so create me a step-by-step, apologies for typing, step-by-step improvement for Tessa. Okay, let's see what this comes out with. So, as I get more familiar as a manager with how this works, I can maybe save prompts that I know work really well, just like you would with any, as I mentioned, with any other kind of AI tool. So what you've got there, you've got a 4-week plan that's created just by putting in that prompt. So again, you can sort of, your people, you know how to get the right reaction from those and so on.
Ian,
But
a
again,
question.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt you. A question just came in the chat from Julie, and
Yeah.
it's one that we hear a lot from customers. They love giving managers this level of visibility, but not every manager knows what to ask or what to do next in a coaching conversation. How do you help with that, especially for teams that already have their coaching progress to follow?
Yeah, so obviously, we know that most businesses have a coaching framework. So,
Yeah.
how do we then bring that into Centrical? And I've seen some examples from, some of our customers who've got really great, where we are, and we
Yeah.
have some outsourced, some BPO customers where Centrical is ingrained in their coaching and performance framework. They've started to take snippets of their coaching framework and use them as their prompts in
Mhm.
here. Okay, so as per the coaching guidelines, I need to coach Tessa on X, Y, and Z. Give me a 6 week plan to do that. Where should I focus first, etc. And it would start building these things out. So again, it's there as a guide, right? It's there to kind of really help. It's never going to replace the process. It's never going to, rip it up and say, do this, it will be better. We can
Agree.
take the existing frameworks and add them into here as, as prompts, or people can put in their own. And again, we've seen all sorts of great and insightful and really kind of cool things being done with this AI assistant. I'm even now seeing customers who are saying, okay, we've got a Black Friday sale coming up. We know we're always going to be 10 times busier than normal. How do I prepare for the guys who are already underperforming? So that I can start getting ahead of the game as well, which I think is really cool. That's never been part of what's expected from team leaders. It's not just about coaching the here and now and what's happened last week or last month. Let's get ahead of the game for next week because we know everyone's going to be mega busy. So
Yeah.
it's really there to allow people to get a little bit smarter with how they use their time. But again, we can bring in some of that kind of existing coaching methodology and help build some prompts around that.
And really support it each step of the way, wherever they
Yeah,
fall. I
yeah,
feel like this
yeah,
one.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's the Team Performance Central along with Centrical's Manager AI Assistant. Now, what I want to look at was very quickly was down here. So this is relatively new. This is my to-do list. So we have all of the insight, we have all of the great you know, external insights being brought in, or those signals being brought in. We have those ad hoc, data points that maybe need addressing. But as a manager, I still have to do those weekly coaching or those weekly side-by-side evaluations. So this is where we have the ability to kind of put this into a to-do list. So I will be assigned 9 weekly coaching forms. And what I can see here is that it's showing me the due date, and it's also showing me the percentage of completion. And the logic that we're trying to look at here is, okay, what is due to be done sooner rather than later? I.e., you might have to do all of your coaching by the end of the week. And you've currently done 0% of that. So maybe that's where you should focus your attention. So it's time bound and how much is still left to be done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on open, and we're going to just have a look at how we can help managers complete their coaching forms, or their coaching evaluations each week or each month. So I'm going to first of all, let's do one for Craig again. Who are Craig? Right, we're going to fill out using AI. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to show you how we can also set some of those step improvements. So this is our coaching form. It's just kind of a one that I've got built in my demo, but it's the kind of thing that you would understand if you've worked in this kind of improvement world of what was the reflection, how do we want to score that framework based to our instructions, and so on. Then what we're going to do, this is the AI down the right hand side here. So first of all, let's prep with AI and see what we need to do around KPIs. Okay, maybe move. I'm just going to move to a different game because it's saying that there's not enough data in there. Which, again, it is a demo, so apologies for that. They say you should never work with kids, animals, or demo environments. But we're going to just try a different game here, maybe where there's a little bit more data. Let me just go to weekly coaching here. And this is more of a customer service game. So you can see here that there's already some in flight. We're going to have a look at Craig again in this week's coaching action, and we're going to fill out using our AI. So again, similar to what we saw in the last one, we're going to set some step goals around the KPIs. We're first of all going to prep the data using AI. So we're going to bring the data in. It's going to give us a view as to maybe where we should focus. I'm hoping that's also going to maybe highlight if there's been a previous one and how Craig performed against that step goal improvement that was set. So let's just wait for that to generate and update. And then once that's done, I'm also going to show you how we can um, look at the coaching capture, bringing in coaching notes to help populate and do some of this heavy lifting. So let's just give this a second or two. It seems to be taking a little bit slower than normal. There we go. Okay. So what we can see here is we can see first of all, we can see, these are some suggested KPIs that we should focus on with a suggested weekly goal. And also, which is really cool, is it will show us any kind of previous goals that were set. So these goals were set last week. Craig missed both goals. His adherence set at 8%, and he came in just under 78, and his quality was just off. So a marked improvement, not the end of the world, and something for us to really work on this week. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on those again. Or we're going to have a look to see what it suggested this week, should I say? Okay, so we've still got quality, we've still got that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on set coaching or set goal. And you'll notice here that it's already filling out those goals. I'm happy with those because I know that he can get there and he should be aiming towards getting there. Then what I'm going to do is once I've set that, is let's add in some context by adding the coaching notes. So I'm going to upload a file here, and I believe I've got, just a second, let's have a look here. Just a moment. I've got these somewhere. Okay, got the coaching notes example 2. We're going to use that as the context. Then I'm going to click on the fill with AI. Okay, now what this will do is exactly that, right? It's going to take the notes, it's going to read the instructions, i.e. what is the framework. So when we were speaking earlier about bringing in your coaching framework, that could be the instruction that the AI fills this out against. And then what it's going to do, it's going to populate exactly where Craig needs to focus, what we need to do on specific improvements and focus, what are the biggest opportunities. However we build these forms out, every one will be different. But we can also bring in any conversational data or conversational info from Craig. What is he saying? He's mentioned the system slowing down at peak times. It's affecting his performance. He's already raised this with his ops lead or with whoever, right? Once we're happy with that, and again, I can go in there and make some more changes and submit that. So again, apart from the fact that AI took a little bit slower than normal, I can fill that out now in 5 minutes, where previously, as I've mentioned, I'm not going off and pulling reports and trying to make sense of what we discussed. Last time we had a conversation, it's all here in the one place. Okay. Doing that at scale, right? This allows managers to do these coaching again, a little bit like what we saw with some of these insights and some of the things that we can do in Team Performance Central. All we're looking to do here, again, someone asked a great question around the Big Brother. This is sort of moving away from that completely, right? This is the manager and the agent collaborating on an improvement. Everyone knows exactly where the actions are, where he is against those. Nothing's a secret. Think about performance. Greg's got the right to own his own performance with help from his leader, and this is what we're looking to do with Centrical. Okay, so yeah, so thanks for all the great questions in the chat. Now I want to finally just show you guys the what we're doing around the AI role play, and specifically around how do we allow people to feel confident and prepared before they go live with a specific call type, whether they're onboarding a new skill. But I don't want to show that end to end, because a call can take 10 minutes, 15 minutes. These are kind of real simulated calls. But what we do want to show, thinking back to manager preparedness and also the insight that the manager needs, is want to show kind of the output of a simulated call that one of the agents has already done, and then that we've already scored against a quality framework. More importantly, right? This isn't a standalone product. Like with everything in Centrical, it's all linked. So, we can build out these role plays and then link that back to an actual quality framework so that we can see how that agent would have performed once he or she has gone live taking the new call type or new process or product that we're looking to kind of put within their skill flow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now go back to team missions. Again, as I mentioned earlier, missions are Centrical's terminology for any piece of content. Okay, we're going to focus today on role play. And again, I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes just showing again that kind of keyword that I've used all day around action is how we make the output of a simulated call actionable for the manager. So we're going to have a look at the build dispute call. And again, we're going to have a look at Craig. He's not having a great day. But anyway, so he got 45%. obviously there's something there that I need to go in and maybe do something about. So first of all, as you can see there, we have different actions that we can take, like we have everywhere in Centrical, but we want to view the actual role play that Craig has already completed. This was the role play title. It was a bill dispute. He was going to practice maintaining professionalism in the interaction while he processes the dispute and claim. And his goal is to be consistent, be professional, empathetic, efficient, and so on. This is the customer that he was interacting with. So Jordan Mitchell with some CRM information. I can even go in there and maybe read through the transcript. Maybe there are some terminologies or words that we've been working on in the past that maybe I've asked Craig to change or look at. But more importantly, I'd even go back in and listen to the actual call itself. So I can go in and listen to the call that Craig took with our AI customer, Jordan. Here are his goals. These are the tips for success. So this is exactly as Craig would have saw it. Now, more importantly, I can go in. Once I've done that, I can go in and have a look at how this was scored and why. So again, this is not just about having a platform or a tool where you can simulate a call. This is actually tying it back to a quality framework. This is how we want to evaluate people when they take these calls and they're live, but also allow the manager to take those actions again. So you can see here that Craig got 45%. Transfer prevention was a big part of what we wanted them to kind of focus on. Be efficient with the call. And what you can see here again, like what we saw in the coaching preparation part of the platform, is that it's tying it back to instructions. So it's taking the call, it's tying it back to these instructions and then scoring it against a framework. And you can see here that he's failing in certain sections. But as a manager, if I didn't agree with that, if I listened to that call, I can go in and edit that. So it might be that I thought he actually did okay on that one. I want to change that to yes. Just change that so it was fine. Then what I can do is I can resubmit that. And what it will do is it will then rescore Craig at 55% and change that one to a pass. So again, this allows the manager to be involved at the time when it's important. We don't expect the manager to sit side by side or simulating these calls in a classroom if that's the like kind of responsibility of a training team. We just want to bring the manager in at the time when it really needs to be done. But then more importantly, again, going back to that word action. Once I'm happy with that, I can then go in, maybe send a coaching action around what it is I want him to work on next time he does the call. I could even go and change those notes so that he sees those as the actions. I might want to go in there and assign a piece of content. So, you didn't really do well on transfer prevention. Go back through this transfer process, go back through this questioning process or this piece of micro learning to really get you to focus on the transfer prevention part of the call. Or if there's been an improvement, he's moved from 50% on his last one to 65. Let's go in and, thank him for that because he's kind of on the right track. And that's something for us both to work on moving forward before he starts taking these calls in a live environment. So that's where we're kind of taking the manager and bringing them into the process. But it's all about closing that loop. Again, we don't just want to be this to be a standalone practice a call type. We want to really feed the important stuff through the manager, allow them to have an eye on what's going on, and then take those actions at scale again. Okay, so that's all I was going to show, Amanda. I will now stop sharing my screen.
Incredible, Ian. That was so great. And we do have time for one final question. And it's a really good one to close on. So, Ian, across customers using these capabilities, where are they seeing the most value? And while Ian takes that, I would love to hear from all of you of what you've seen today, the AI simulations, the coaching, turning signals into action. Where do you see the biggest opportunity for your own team? Drop it in the chat while Ian shares what he is seeing.
And it's a great question, right? And it's multifaceted, really. I think, we're all about efficiency. We're all about having people spending their time on the right things. Where we've probably seen the biggest improvements or the biggest tangible gains really quickly are the customers that are using our AI assistant. And that's because, team leaders are a pretty heavy cost in an operation. So rather
Mhm.
than having sort of a manager managing 10 people, we can have a manager now managing 15, 18, 25. Again, as I mentioned, there's one of our customers are currently working on potentially going up to 25 to 30 agents per manager. which is a lot, but their reason being is that their managers can spend more time doing the things that they are meant to be doing. And that's one example. We also have an example that I work with here in the EMEA region in Europe, where their managers are saving 4 to 10 hours a week on that kind of non-value add time of pulling reports and trying to make sense of the performance picture. So I would say at the moment where we're seeing the biggest gains is around the AI assistant. I think where we will start to see it as we move forward will be with AI role play. So again,
Mhm.
things are changing quicker now than they ever have in the industry. The roles of frontline colleagues are changing at a pace we've never seen before. So having the AI role play in there allows us to be ready for that change. And
Mhm.
that becomes just part of the agent and the manager workflow is having those simulated calls, when they have their development time, rather than sitting and going through an hour-long, presentation or a PowerPoint in a classroom, let them jump on a 10-minute simulator call and put that straight into practice and really, work out where it is they need help and where it is that they're doing well. So yeah, I would say AI role play will be great, very, very beneficial to customers. But back to your question, we're seeing a lot of great ROI specifically around the AI assistant so far.
Great. Thank you, Ian.
Okay. One thing, just you can see the slide here on the screen. If you've kind of liked what you've seen, if we've piqued your interest, as I've mentioned, Centrical is a very, very wide, broad platform. There's a lot of stuff that we didn't get to show today. So, you've got your contact details there on the screen. If you're an existing customer, please reach out to your customer success manager to get access to have a bit more of a deeper dive demo and learn more. And if you're not yet a customer, then please feel free to visit our website. There's some great collateral on there. There's some demos, there's some videos. We have all of the different kind of case studies and different use cases that we support within an operation. Or you can feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I can get back to you as soon as possible.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Bye.